How to Build a Business in a Pandemic. Brought to you by the Business and Brews Show and Trek CBD. Welcome back once again to another episode of Building a Business During a Pandemic. My name is Ryan Smeltz.
And I'm Nick Pione.
And ladies and gentlemen, once again, we have the pleasure of being joined by Pedro. So on this episode, just like you heard last time, we're going to be talking about culture. I'm super excited about this. Nick, you want to kick us off?
I do. So culture has been a huge part of my career. Being part of successful cultures, being quite honestly a part of bad cultures before. I had the pleasure of working for some very large organizations. $33 billion company was the last company I worked for. So 100,000 employees. So, I've seen all different types of culture in that 18 years that I spent with them. As I'm sure you can probably share culture from an Army standpoint. So we want to get into it today, but we really want to get into it around the importance of culture. And really, it doesn't matter if you have an idea, like we know a lot of the audience does, and you're looking to start a business, whether you have an established business, and it doesn't matter whether you have a big business, small business, it doesn't matter at all. If you haven't figured out your culture, if you haven't figured out your values, it's something you need to stop today. Listen to this podcast, take some notes, because I promise you, having the right culture makes all the difference in your business. My career was formulated off of really one quote, and it was a quote from Peter Drucker that says, basically, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So say it again, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you're trying to figure out your strategies and you haven't figured out your culture yet, take a pause. All right?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with all of that, and I'm super excited to jump into Pedro's experience with this. I think the number one thing I have to say, especially as it relates to what I do now and the Army when it comes to culture, is that with those values and the individuals, if you look at culture as a wall or a house, that those things are the bricks that make it up. Not just the people, but your values as well. And so I think because I have talked to business owners who believe that culture is something where you can just hire an outside person who has experience in general management, and then you have a culture, and that's just not the way it works. It starts as a foundation, and if you're not willing to take time with those individual pieces, then you're not going to get the result you're looking for.
I completely agree. So I think culture is one of the more misunderstood things out there, because when you think about culture, and there's nothing wrong with this, right? It can take on a lot of different definitions. If you ask 10 different people what culture is, right? I would say a vast majority would probably say, culture is something where I want to get out of bed every single morning and I want to go to work and I want to feel good about myself, right? If you asked a sales leader like myself or like you, it's all that. Plus, I want people to be accountable to the mission and to performance, right, around that, so we can actually help grow the company, right? So it's one of those things where I think some leaders look at it as, is this going to be one of those touchy-feely moments, and it's just going to be about this kumbaya thing? And, quite honestly, it is. It is going to be a part of that. But is it going to take away all my ability to hold people accountable to performance, growing the company, meeting a high standard? It is absolutely not. It is part of that culture, depending on what culture you build. Okay?
Yeah, and I think with Pedro here, we do such a mix of experience in this. So Pedro, when it comes to culture, within a company, especially because I know you mentioned in the last episode that you're about to start hiring some people. So, what does that look like to you? What are some steps that you're going to take to instill that culture? I know you talked about values as well, so I'd love to hear about that also.
Yeah, man. So, like I mentioned the last episode, I learned everything about core values with this friend of mine. His name is Thomas Keenan. And like I said, I will send you that extra copy that I have of his book that is called Unfuck Your Business. And, I didn't realize how important it was to have core values in your business, And the reason why this is important, and I think it's part of the foundation to create a culture in your business, is because if you don't know exactly who you are or what do you want or what type of business do you have, you're not going to be able to attract the attractive character or the perfect customer for your business. What I will talk about this here in a second too, but man, I went through the exercise in that book about creating your core values, and I actually create my core values for my business, and it changed everything, because I believe that when you understand who you are, like for example, and there's different things that you can use, not only your core values, but before I understood about core values, people, for example, recognize me for my beer, or because I love to drink beer, right? Mm-hmm. So people knows that's part of creating that image that you want to project to your audience. So that is very, very important. Like if I share my beer right now, nobody will recognize me, right?
You me both, man.
Yeah, so it's little things like that, but man, everything I believe comes down to your core values. So for example, my core values is only 4 core values that I have. Like in that book, when you guys read that book, you're gonna understand why you have to go like just a few core values. So my 4 core values is commitment, because we do what we say we're going to do, right? And we honor our word. And then I have the other one is leadership, because we find a way, even if we have to create a new one, to find the solution for our clients. Then abundance, because we think and act abundantly. And then the last one is boldness, because we are bold in our actions. So we don't retract, we move forward no matter what, and we're bold in everything we do. So that's my 4 core values, So when it comes to hire people, like right now that, for example, in a real estate business, for example, we work with a brokerage that is called eXp Realty. That is a national brokerage, and you can actually we are on the process to building our team, not only to hire people for help us with our leads and assistance and all that kind of stuff, but actually we are building a team too with my wife. So we gonna, like for example, I was telling my wife, because she's the one who wants to take care of the recruitment and all that stuff. It's like, okay, that's fine. But we need to find the people who can live these same values. We need to find people who is committed, that is going to deliver no matter what. People that can be leaders and that have the abundance mentality and have the boldness to take responsibility for everything they do. So when it comes for us to decide, okay, we want to bring these real estate agents to our team, or these people, or somebody who's trying to get into real estate, right? And we're gonna provide them the things, the tools that they need to get their license and all that stuff. Like, is this person have these 4 things in their personality, right? These 4 values that we have as a business, as a family, as a company, right? Like, if they don't have those 4 things, they're not gonna work for us. It is just that simple. And that's I think people is afraid of that, I think people is afraid that not only when it comes to hiring, but also when it comes to your customers. I always tell my clients, like everything that you do in your business needs to attract the right people and repel the wrong people. Like who cares if people don't like your opinion? Like that's not the right people for your business. Yep. Like I'm very open. I cause a lot on my content, and I drop truth bombs, and people sometimes don't like it. But if they don't like it, that means they're not the right fit for me, not only for my business, but also for my life and my relationships. So I think when people can remove that fear, they will understand that when you're able to repel the wrong people, you're going to attract more of the right people. So that's why I wanted to share about the core values, because when it comes to hiring, like we're going to hold people accountable with these 4 things that we believe in. You know what I mean?
That's so insightful right there.
Yeah.
Pedro, it really is. I mean, because I've spent, looking at hiring, and hiring is never a perfect science, right? I remember Jack Welch saying you get it right about 10% of the time, and that's true. But I think there's a lot of people out there, and there's no right or wrong answer here, but, just in my experience, a lot of people focus on skills. If you think about that, like if you have a restaurant, let's give an example of that, and you're looking to hire a wait person, wait staff and whatnot. A lot of people will look for people that have experience, waiting on customers. But at the end of the day, if they don't have the right values like you're describing, Pedro, it doesn't matter. Because maybe they're totally creating a bad experience that's not the experience that you want to create for your customer base. Instead of doing what you're doing, Pedro, which is amazing in terms of sitting down and saying, you know what? I want to hire people that are going to make exceptional customer experiences. If you have that, and if you can interview on people that have done that, then the skills are the easy part, right? The skills, I can teach somebody how to wait on tables. I can teach somebody how to work in Trek CBD, right? But if they have the right values around that, that is where I believe you start to lessen that 10% in terms of, it's not getting it right 10% of the time, right? It's getting it right 50% of the time.
Yeah.
Around there.
I think something that he made me think about, Pedro made me think about, he was talking about repelling the wrong people.
Yep.
And so that made me just think of, a business owner, especially new business owners out there just trying to please everybody.
Yep.
And I think, Nick, it comes back a lot to what you talk about, where it's like if you try to speak to everyone, you speak to no one.
Yep.
And I know plenty of business owners out there who start a company and say that, Pedro is a perfect example because his marketing is based around brewing. It's like he's not trying to tell people that he's going to market their modeling agency or their retail store
Yep. or
their car dealership. He's specifically focused on brewing businesses. So if he didn't, focus in on that niche, then he would start to attract people that didn't necessarily hold the values or fit into his model. And so I think Pedro, if I'm not mistaken, you're kind of a one-man show at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment,
Okay.
yeah, just me and my wife.
So right there, even though it's only two people,
Yep.
that's still a culture, and it's a culture that they built. He's got the core values, so it's like one thing I love about that is when they do start hiring people, they're not going in blind. They've already got that roadmap laid out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
And
fantastic.
I'm glad that you brought up about the name of the marketing company. Because that is exactly why I named it the Marketing Brewing Company. Because why I'm gonna use something different when I'm trying to reach out to breweries?
Yeah, definitely.
So that is a great example. You're completely right. That's how I came out with this name, because I have my core values and I decided what I wanted to do and the culture I wanted to create it, and that's how I came out with that name. And but one of the other thing is it is having like your core values and understanding the foundation of your business applies for everything. Like not only for hiring or your clients. Like I don't work with people who doesn't align with me. I'm not afraid of telling people, what, I'm not the right fit for you because maybe they don't like that I cost a lot. Or that I'm gonna tell them the truth. Or like, listen, you're screwing this up in your social media. Maybe you don't like that for me, so we're not the right fit. But you know what? I know somebody who can be the right fit for you, and I don't mind sending it to somebody else and help somebody else to get the business. Like I don't lose in anything. I have more to lose by working with the wrong people than actually working with the right people. Because they're gonna make me waste my time.
Yep.
If I choose, like you just said, like trying to please everybody, right? You try to please everybody, that all the time that you wasted trying to please the wrong customer, you can actually use that time, all that time that you wasted in one customer, you could use that time to please 10 of the right customers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why one of the things that I always say to and things that I try to teach for the craft beer industry, is like you need to know who's your perfect customer, because everybody who drinks beer is not your perfect customer. Like the people who likes to drink lagers is not the same people. You're not gonna have the same message for the people who like hazy IPAs. Then it's not the same message. It's not the same.
Yeah.
You cannot. It's not the same offer that you're gonna craft. So when you create your core values, when you're clearing your culture, what you're gonna do is that it's gonna help you to craft the right message. It's gonna help you to craft the right offers and put the right information out there that will attract that perfect customer. Is gonna repel the wrong people. It's like, I don't like these guys. And that's some of the things. One of the things that we're gonna do, for example. Because man, it's been like 20 people already in my life that all of them, they joke around saying like, dude, you look like this. I think you look like the son of the guy from the Dos Equis slide, the most interesting man. Everybody's like, man, you're that guy's son, So dude, I just started doing what I'm gonna do right now. We're gonna launch a campaign with my wife, and I show you. I actually made a meme,
That's great.
about it, and it got me a couple leads,
Yo.
So
That's innovation right
Culture.
there. Yeah, that's culture right there. I mean,
Culture.
that's a culture of fun right there. I like that.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
Actually, my wife posted about it. Let me find it. Like, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I use that in my business cards. Like in my real estate business cards, I have some. I usually use digital everything, but I printed some. And in the back says, I don't know where sell homes. Oh wait, I don't know where sell your home. Oh wait, yes I do. Like the way that this guy from Those Eckies talk, like I don't always drink beer. Oh wait, yes I do. So I just using that stuff. I just leveraging what people think that I'm look like. So I'm gonna launch a whole campaign like me like trying to be that guy, and people like it. Like I don't know if you guys can see it, but
you can send it to us if you want. I'm looking at my phone right now, but you can send it to us if you want. I'll just throw it into the video.
I'll throw it in the video at the end.
Yeah,
Great.
definitely. But
let me see.
I'm a firm believer. So I think all three of us agree that culture really starts with your core values, and
it does.
If you don't know what those are, I mean, you had mentioned the Army earlier, and it really applies across the board. But the Army has an acronym for their core values. It's leadership. There's 7 of them. So loyalty is the first one. And see, I'm not even going to try to remember them. It's been so long, but
I could challenge that and say that if you're going to have core values, try to keep it like to 3 to 5, maybe.
Yeah, well,
maybe
it is a government. It is a U.S. government agency,
right,
but
exactly.
But the core values, and then instilling those. But what I'm getting at is, I believe that culture starts on an individual level.
It does.
And one of the reasons why I talk about this is because I have been told that I'm wrong. I've been interrupted in answering a question as to how I would build a culture, in that I take the individual to the side immediately as soon as they're a part of the team. And I did this in the Army. I've done it after the Army. I've done it with every single team that I've run. And we hold a conversation. And part of that conversation is not just the core values, but what their goals are,
right,
where they want to head, what they expect to get out of this relationship, and what I expect to get out of the relationship. So I think it sets a solid foundation for the individual, and then that's where you start to see how the individual goals line up with the team goals, with the company goals, and that's where you start to see a lot more success. So I think the saying goes, and one of the reasons why I hold those conversations is because people say people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Completely.
I'd like to throw a curveball in and say that the period is after people don't care how much you know. Because even once they do know how much you care, that's the only thing they care about. And it's 100% true. The cultures that I have seen successful, the person at the top who instilled it, founded it, got it started, and helped it really grow and flourish as a company. This one guy in an organization at work, he is responsible for many, many, many companies getting to where they are. And I had the privilege of talking to him. I'm not going to drop any names because I don't have permission, but I'll reach out and see if I do. But let's just say he's a self-made millionaire, and he spoke to me at an event that we had where we got to network, and all he did was listen. And I think that says a lot about him. And in the middle of it, I was like, why is this guy, why is he talking to me? Why is he listening to me? Like, what do I actually have to say? But I think that says a lot about who he is as a person. And I think that speaks volumes to the culture that he's developed throughout the organization as a whole. So the point being that I believe that culture starts with the individual, and that's where it really starts to grow across teams as a whole.
I agree with you. I think it starts with the individual, and I think it stays with the individual as well too. in terms of the fact that I think there are companies, and I've been a part of these, that have absolutely clear core values, clear culture, mission statements, how they're going to serve the customer, how they're going to serve their employees. But at the end of the day, if you surveyed those employees, if you talk to them about, are you experiencing in your day-to-day those values in those cultures, it's easy sometimes to find a disconnect in that. In terms of what you say and what you do. It's the actions and words, right? Saying what you do. So, to me, probably the most successful cultures I've been a part of is that we're built by a team. And I mean that culture in values can change over time. They can evolve over time, but they are created by a team, but they are absolutely led and felt through every member of the organization, because on, and you can do the research out there. There's been more than one study done out there where people that work for organizations can't recall the mission, can't recall the strategies, can't recall the culture, right? Or they feel a disconnect from what's coming from top down. And that's been some of my experience in my career, is that I've been part of some amazing cultures. And I built that and worked with some amazing teams that have also been part of some cultures where we started making decisions that started to deviate from those core values. Where when we talked about things like respect and we talked about transparency, and we're having a meeting amongst leaders, and we're saying, well, you know what, we're not going to share that with everyone right now. Well, it kind of goes against the whole transparency thing that was in our core values. So to me, it's about, not only creating a strong culture and creating strong values, but making sure that you're living those every single day. Everybody can recall what those are. And then the other part of it is, how are you blindly testing that? Are you surveying your customers and say, hey, if you came in to Trek CBD and one of their core values is empathy, right? Because we care about our customers. Does it feel like that to you? Because again, it's great to have all these things on paper. Don't get me wrong. But if the customer's not feeling that, if you are a customer-facing business, if your employees aren't feeling that, like if you got a culture of saying, hey, we want this a fun place to be, to work, does it feel fun for them? Then again, they're just words on paper. Yeah. So that's where I think, if you're listening to this tonight, and if you've heard from Pedro and you're hearing also from Ryan on this, and myself as well, is that you control as an entrepreneur. Listen to the previous episode of this. Pedro, you spoke amazingly about, the ownership, the sense of ownership being about entrepreneur. You own it. So if your culture's not where it needs to be right now, change it. If you don't know what your culture is, whether you have 4 employees, 2 employees, ask them, what does it feel like to work here? And they'll tell you. And then if that's not what you want it to be, make a change. It's that simple.
Yeah, and one of the things that I have learned too, man, is you get what you focus on, So if you focus on exactly the culture that you want to attract, you also will attract the right partners, the right vendors, the right people to work with you, Because, we it's funny because we actually went through something like that with my wife for the past couple of weeks with the lenders that we're trying to partner with, in our real estate business. I mean, it was hard, because we are people that are, I'm not trying to brag, but the reality is that me and my wife, we are on top of our game, we realize we probably been closing more deals right now if the people that we were working a couple of weeks ago will have the same work ethic as we do, So we have to start finding more people and people that can align with that, that know that on a Sunday you're going to be available if you have to, because there's a client that needs help, So I think that's very important. So. And again, it went back to okay, why these people is not working? Do they align to our core values? No, they didn't. They don't have the work ethic. They don't have the boldness to follow up with the leads, for example. They're afraid to call them if they don't answer. They're afraid to get creative. For example, I remember there was a lead. Though I was working with this guy, and never hear from the lender. Dude, this guy submit the application, they'll be following up with him. I had to follow up with this guy, asking when he was available, and then call the lender and say, listen, man, this guy's going to be available this time. He's going to be waiting for your call, so you better call him, So, but after that, we never sent more people to him. But again, it's because it doesn't align with us and the way that we work, because it's affecting us and it's hurting our pocket as well,
That's crazy. That's a good point. I mean, I think one thing your one point you're bringing up there is something I've learned over and over and over again, and that's one of the hardest things to do in business or working for somebody else is working with people. It's just the team environment. I mean, at the end of the day, you're gonna have disagreements. You're gonna go through things where, you know, one person feels like they're not a part of the team. Another person feels like things aren't necessarily going their way, and navigating through that and realizing that not only is it part of the culture, and so if the culture that you've built is not one of being open, then as the primary leader, you may not realize that you're having these problems within your organization. So when you build and instill an open door, you know, transparency, value into your culture, then these people will bring these things to you. And one thing, me as the head of my business on the side that I do, obviously it's just me and Joe, the guy that I hired. He's absolutely phenomenal. I love that guy to death because he's a Marine. I was in the Army. We get along, we make jokes and whatnot, but that guy brings problems to me no matter what. He's not afraid to say it. He brings solutions. He's got a ton more experience than me in what he does. And so what I love about that is the fact that he's bringing those problems sets me up for success for the future. When I bring problems to someone else, like if I worked for you, Nick, here in the store, and I brought problems to you, and you just got mad and said, oh, you know, don't tell me or figure it out or whatever, it's like at some point, number one, I'm going to stop bringing problems to my boss.
You are. Why would you?
And number two, it's like, it's kind of like what we talked about in the last episode, is that failure is what's really breeding that success. And so it's like, you know, the fact that, you know, maybe the credit card machine stopped working might be an opportunity for us to reevaluate how we're processing them overall. But if we just get mad and stomp our feet, it's like, you know, so the person, I guess my point is, if an employee is bringing a problem to the boss or the owner of the company, that is evidence of a solid culture, not a problem. It's that transparency, it's that openness, it's that me being willing to communicate openly with the person that's in charge of me.
I do. When you were saying that, I'm thinking about, that's an awesome culture you've created, that people feel comfortable, or he feels comfortable coming to you and sharing that with you. I think that that's the foundation of a good culture. It's what you do with it, basically. From there, now, if you just dismiss it or don't address the problem, then he's going to stop coming to you, right? I remembered this quote when I read the book Team of Teams by General Stanley McChrystal. And he said that as
I worked for him.
He did, well, then you might know this better than I do, essentially. But he spoke in the book about how when you go to places as a general, people tell you what you want to hear, right? But he spoke deeper to that, about a culture where people would keep bringing problems to leadership and nothing would happen, right? So he would come to places and he would ask them, so how's it going here? And he would get like, you know, it's all good. It's all great. Everything's good here, right? And I guess in the Army, I'm not familiar with this, but in the Army, I guess you're on like a 1-year deployment, essentially. And so what he did to make sure that he had the culture that he wanted, what he would ask those troops then, okay, so if everything is so good here for you right now, okay, what happens if you had to stay here until the end of time to finish the mission, not go home in a year? And he said, just by changing a question like that and showing, like you said, that you care about actually knowing what's going on, your culture might be transparency and listening, but you actually demonstrate it by that question. He said, the floodgates would open at that point, and people would say, oh, well, wait a minute, if I'm not going home to my family in a year, we're going to change this, we're going to change this, we're going to change this, because now it's not the next guy's problem, it's my problem. But I thought it was a great insight into leadership in terms of you have the culture that you think you have.
Yeah.
You're going there on the ground. You're asking people questions about, hey, what's going on here? And then they're giving you answers that we all know that may not be, what you want to hear, basically. You might be thinking you're getting the pat answer, and he tested it and he got a completely different answer. Then he can start to really work on the culture that he wants, right? To make sure that his leaders understand the importance, what I took away from it, the importance of listening to their troops and actually taking action on what they say to you. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And that is something that I see a lot in the craft beer industry, man. Like people, for example, I have been in so many tap rooms where the waitress or the bartender doesn't really transmit that culture, but that's the business owner fault. You don't like, that's a reality. Like, I don't like, if this pisses you off, whoever is listening, like, you have to listen to this because if your people is not transmitting your culture, that's your fault because you haven't taken the time to teach your employees the culture that you want to deliver as a business, so you have to take the time to teach your people, and if they cannot adapt to that, so find someone else that can actually can match your culture. Because again, I think I guess it's applied for everything, for your employees, for clients, for everything. Like, there's have to be people you have to repel, and then that's the right people you have to attract.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It really is. I mean, because at some point, if you're an entrepreneur, the business hopefully is going to grow bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And you're going to need those employees to basically impress upon your customers, whether it's in person, virtually, doesn't matter, your vision, your culture. They are going to be the representation of you. So how you do that is what we're talking about today, how you create values at the lowest level, how you create culture in terms of how your employees experience you, your company, and then how you measure it, essentially, like everything else, in terms of, well, if that's what we want and that's what we're saying, is it actually happening?
That's awesome, Pedro. I'm so glad you're here, man, because just like getting that additional perspective into the brewing industry, even it's crazy because like you don't even run a brewery, but just because you're so heavily involved in that industry, we get that additional perspective, and I think that's pretty cool.
Man, one of the things that I mentioned, I don't remember to who. I don't know, it was in a podcast episode for the craft beer conference back in October, but business principles are the same no matter the industry, and that's the reason why in my podcast, that's another great example, like my company is called the Marketing Brewing Company, right? And then the podcast called the Brewing Business Show. So everything is related to the culture that I want to create for the craft beer industry, right? But somebody was asking me, like, why are you bringing people from different industries to your show when you want to talk to the craft beer industry? Because the business principles are the same across any industry, and if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, you are limiting yourself trying to learn from people only in your industry. I think it's important that if you run a business or you're an entrepreneur, you have to learn from people from different industries, because you can take things from the real estate industry, you can take things from insurance, from roofing, from solar, and what people is doing in those industries and implemented it into your business, into the craft, especially if you run a brewery. And that's kind of like the concept that I've been trying to teach in the craft beer industry, that the importance of generating the lead generation concept, like collecting data, and why it's important, and why is the data the most valuable resource you can have as a business in 2020, So, because I have learned that from other industries, and there's something that you can leverage in the craft beer industry as well.
Nice.
I couldn't agree with you more, Pedro. I mean, I think it's like, if we're in a business of customer service at Trek CBD, period. I mean, we create an exceptional customer experience for our customers. You could insert CBD, you could insert anything into that, right?
Yeah.
But I listen to different podcasts. I read different blogs about how people are creating exceptional customer experiences, because at the end of the day, what does it matter, right? What does it matter what they're selling? It's how they're creating that experience for their customer. And even if they're doing it, like, we're not specifically or primarily an e-commerce company. It's something that we do, but it's not. I'll still learn something from someone who's a 100% e-commerce brand, right? Versus someone who is like more akin to us, which is a retail brand. But yeah, I believe in that. We talked about that in the last podcast, Pedro. You did a great job of talking about what I would call the stretch. How do you stretch yourself every single day? And I think you stretch yourself more by listening to others that aren't in your industry, and being able to separate what is directly applicable and what's just indirectly applicable in my mind.
Totally. Absolutely. And one of the things that I've been doing right now too is, I'm taking everything, because like I said, when I started a Marketing Brewing company, right, everything in my social media became beer, right? Like posting beer, like even people ask. I have a good friend of mine. He's a personal trainer here in Frisco, Texas. And every single time that he posts something or asks a question to his audience, I always posting something related to beer, because that helps people. That's part of my culture, like I love drinking beer. I love the craft beer industry, and I want people to know that, like, you want to make me happy, buy me a beer, and now I'm transmitting that same culture of drinking beer into the real estate for me, like all the memes and all that stuff that I do for real estate is there's beer included, in pictures and everything. There's beer included, because that will keep people, remind them that okay, this guy is doing real estate, but he still have that marketing company for breweries, right? And people refer me to other people too, So it is, you can combine different things, and it doesn't matter what industry you're working with. So I'm taking everything that I have done for the craft beer industry into the real estate, so people can think of, oh, this guy is the beer guy, right? The beer real estate, or whatever they want to call it. I don't know.
So Pedro, have you experienced any resistance to this? Like when you're talking to a client, and obviously for you, as I'm listening to you, your values are so clear. Your vision is so clear. There's no doubt in my mind when you get into your hiring phase, you're going to nail it, right? But when you're talking to clients, have you uncovered disconnects in their values or in their culture, and how have those conversations gone?
Man, if you want me to be very honest with you,
completely,
I have found a lot of opposition in the craft beer industry.
Yeah.
A lot, a lot, especially when it comes to that's the reason why I said early, when the COVID started and all that stuff, people are like, oh, we are in the hospitality business. We don't sell beer online. We need people walking into our brewery. And I have those kind of conversations. Like, yeah, I know that you need people walking into your brewery, but the only way you can talk to people right now to get them walking into your brewery is through social media. Right. So, I have found a lot of opposition, and that's the reason why I say a lot, about how important it is that this industry start developing that entrepreneurship and all this. Getting into the business development and networking and finding different ideas and strategies and be open to that, because, most people at this point, it is incredible. But in 2020, there's still a lot of people in the craft beer that they think that this industry is about just making the best beer. And it is not. We are in 2020. I think right now, this industry needs to understand that we're at a point in time that this is about who runs the best business. Who have the best business practice, who have the best core values, who have the best process and systems, because the consumer is more intelligent than ever before. They want to be part of your culture. They want to be part of your business. They want to feel like you are including them in whatever you're doing in your business, no matter what industry you're in. If you don't understand that, you're gonna you're gonna go out of business, and that's the truth. I'm not saying this to be an asshole, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
If you don't adapt to what, if you don't adapt,
yeah.
Sorry, man. Go ahead.
No, I said it's not about being an asshole. I don't think it's at all. I think it's about being a realist. When I'm listening to you, I mean, it's not about. I mean, if you don't like the feedback, don't shoot the messenger, right? But right now, the reason Ryan and I wanted to start this podcast is we really wanted to share real world experiences with people that have a great idea. My idea is always you're sitting on a great idea, you're sitting on a tack, basically. But by no means do we want to think that this is easy, right? This entrepreneurship is not easy, and starting a business in a pandemic is not easy, but it is possible, and it is a great time to start a business. And what I'm hearing you say, though, is one of the death knells of anybody who's in business or in anything, doesn't matter, is resistance to change. Right now it's COVID-19, but 5 years from now or 2 years from now or 6 months, it'll be something different.
Yeah.
But being open to change, being open to feedback, like being open to the fact to say that, you know what, I run an amazing business at Trek CBD, but if I look at, which I do, if I look at customer surveys that say, we don't really feel like you value us as a customer, am I going to sit there and say, this is complete bullshit and they're wrong? Or am I going to say, well, wait a minute, maybe there's something to this and let's uncover this. So to me, what I'm listening to you, Pedro, and hearing this is that resistance to change is a killer. You're not an asshole for saying that. You're just being the truth in there and saying that if you're not willing to adapt, then you're going to have a hard time surviving. And it's not in the backdrop of COVID-19. It's anything, right? Good economy, it's that.
Absolutely, man. And I'm okay with that. I don't mind about this kind of rejection and all that stuff that I've been experiencing, especially during this year when I'm trying to tell people like you need to go online and you need to start doing stuff and collecting people's information. Like I really don't mind that rejection, especially because I like the things that I speak on social media and all that stuff is stuff that people really don't. It's hard for people to understand sometimes, So I'm used to that rejection and those hateful DMs and all that kind of stuff. It's like, whatever, man, I'm gonna keep doing my stuff because I'm not doing it for you. There's somebody out there who needs to hear this and somebody out there who's gonna help them in their business. So I don't care about your opinion. This is my opinion. This is what I think. This is based on my experience and what I've been able to do for others. So if you don't take it, you're the one going out of business, not me.
Yeah, I think for me, and I'm sometimes I can be a bit of an empath, right? I mean, in terms of feeling other people's pain, right? I think for me, in when I've done consulting, the hardest thing is when you're giving somebody what you believe is candor, the truth, basically, and they don't want to listen to you because you're trying to give them your best advice, and they don't want to listen. And I think if you're going to hire a consultant, that's what you should be looking for, not for them to tell you what you want to hear, but tell you what you need to hear. But I completely agree with you in the fact that there's a lot of people that don't really want to hear what they need to hear. They want to hear what they think is right for them.
Yeah, and the other problem that I see too is in most of the groups on social media or the craft beer industry, like they don't have these conversations. They don't talk about this. Like everything, like 98% of their conversations are about something that's related to production or equipment and all that stuff, which is great. Don't get me wrong. Yep. It's great that you have to improve all that stuff. But what about your sales? What about growing your business? Like you can, like I said before, like you can have the best beer in the world, but if nobody knows about your beer, you don't know how to sell it. You're screwed. You're gonna go out of business, and nobody's gonna buy your stuff. So.
And I think that comes back to, you just made me kind of think of one thing. I think that comes back to where we started this podcast in terms of like hiring people. And I think it is certainly easier for any business to hire for skills. Like, so if you're hiring people right now, Pedro, or if you're hiring people, it's easy to find somebody that knows marketing, right? Versus finding somebody that has no idea about marketing, but really possesses your core values. And let's be honest, it's going to take you more time to teach them the marketing function up front, or whatever the function is, right? Up front, it's going to take you more time. You're going to have to invest more in that employee up front. It's going to take more of your time, which you don't have as an entrepreneur. But in the long run, because they share your values and they share that, they are going to thrive once they get that small part down about what am I supposed to do every single day? Right? That small part about the skills that they need versus hiring somebody on the values. That's kind of what I encapsulate this whole thing in. Go ahead.
Now that you mentioned that, I know that these have probably nothing to do with culture, man, but that's another big problem that I see. Like you go to a craft beer forum, right, or a group on Facebook or something, and then you try to talk about marketing and all that stuff, and people just block you. People just cancel your shit, And it's like. And here's the thing, like if you're as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, marketing is everything, like the people that we work with and the people that we want to bring under our team in the real estate part, for example, like the first thing that we teaching these people is marketing, so they can attract the right people. But that doesn't mean that, for example, if you own a brewery, if you don't know nothing about marketing, it doesn't mean that you have to go and learn everything that us marketers know, like how to build websites or funnels and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to do that, but at least you should know basic concepts of social media marketing. And if you don't have somebody in your team, you should hire somebody, because when you hire a company, a marketing company or a consultant or whatever other company, other people providing you services, that should represent a return on investment. And that's the problem, because when you try to tell them, I offer marketing services, you just try to rip me off, like all this social media bullshit and all that stuff. Like, you just want my money. Like, I don't want your money, man. I just want to help you, But if you don't do it, like, what are you going to do? Like you have to learn how to leverage. And I think a lot of business owners are afraid of leverage most of their to other people or other companies, like marketing companies and advertisement companies and all that kind of stuff. So, like, if you don't do it, like, you're going to get screwed. But your marketing, like, whoever you hire should represent a return on investment.
Yeah. I think that's a really good caveat into our next episode.
Yeah.
Which is interviewing and hiring, because I my intent with bringing up that topic was obviously employees, but you don't only hire employees for your business. Mm-hmm. You also hire other companies, contractors, and other positions and people for different reasons. So I think it's important to not just know how to vet employees through the interview process, but to also do that with other companies and contractors that might be handling your marketing or your design aspect and things of that nature. So I think we'll talk about interviewing and hiring on
sounds awesome.
The next episode. Yeah.
Pedro, are you going to hang with us?
Sure, man. I still have 2 more beers left.
2 more beers. Well, that's great. Then let's roll.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, listen, Pedro's sticking with us. So join us on the next episode. We're talking about interviewing and hiring. I'm super excited. Nick, I'm going to give you a real quick second. Just tell us where people can find you real quick.
Yeah, so people can find me. You can find me in a variety of different places. And again, we probably don't say this enough, but Ryan and I are doing this podcast, taking our time for a reason. We want to help small businesses thrive, period. I own a company called Proline Solutions. I own a company I co-founded called Trek CBD. You can find me at trekcbd.com. That's TREKCBD.com. Go to the contact page. You'll get me. It'll get to me. If you're on LinkedIn, my name is Nick Pione, Pione. You can see me there. You can reach out there as well too. And if you need help with your business, this is not a paid thing for me. I'd be more than happy to pick up the phone and talk to you as well. But that's probably the 2 best ways to find me. How about you, Ryan?
Oh, yeah. You can probably type in the Bearded Veteran anywhere on Google and find me. But usually at a vet's beard, AVETSBEARD.
Yep.
On any social media platform.
Perfect.
I can't name all of them. Or you can just email me or the show, Ryan at beardedveteran.com or Ryan at businessandbrewshow.com. I guess it goes to the same inbox, so I guess it's just a matter of how many keys you want to press. But Pedro, tell us real quick, the audience, where people can find you.
pedromeneses.online or marketingbrewingco.com. That will be probably the 2 best places to find me.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome, man. So if you guys want to reach out to me, Pedro, Nick, we're here to help. Join us in the next episode. We're talking about interviewing and hiring.
Sounds good. Be well, everyone.
How to build a business during a pandemic. This show is brought to you by Trek CBD. You can check them out at trekcbd.com. Written and produced by the Business and Brew Show. Find more episodes at businessandbrewshow.com. Hosted by Nick Pione and Ryan Smelt. Guest host Gavin